August 17, 2025. A date that will be remembered across North America for years to come. The Beaver Creek border crossing on the Alaska Highway is silent. The border is closed, not a single vehicle moves, and the usual bustle of travelers and commerce has vanished. A line of vehicles, lorries, RVs, family cars waits, drivers staring at the unmoving barrier and the Canadian flag above it. Some honk in frustration, others step out to talk, confusion and disbelief written on their faces. For decades, this road connected Alaska to the lower 48, a vital artery for families, businesses, and adventure seekers alike. It was a symbol of unity and freedom of movement. Today, it's a dead end. The once open road now abruptly halts at a barricade, its purpose erased overnight. Canadian border agents hand out leaflets. No overland transit to or from Alaska. The shock is immediate. Travelers read the notices in disbelief, realizing their journeys have come to an unexpected halt. Families, truckers, and tourists are stranded, their plans upended. Some are separated from loved ones, others face financial loss, and all are left searching for answers. The closure repeats at every crossing along the border. Access denied. From the Pacific to the prairies, the message is the same. The border is sealed. Essential goods bound for Alaska are stuck. Food, medicine, and fuel shipments are halted, threatening shortages in remote communities. The economic and personal impact is instant. Store shelves begin to empty, businesses brace for losses, and families worry about what comes next. This isn't just inconvenience, it's a geopolitical move. Newsrooms scramble to interpret the crisis, and analysts debate the motives behind Canada's decision. Ordinary people are now pawns. Their lives disrupted by decisions made far away, they wait anxiously for answers and hope for a resolution. The closure is a direct response to President Trump's summit with Vladimir Putin in Anchorage. The world watches as tensions rise between old allies and new rivals. By severing the land bridge, Canada sends a message, a protest, and a warning to Washington. The diplomatic fallout is immediate, and the stakes are higher than ever. Overnight, Alaska becomes an island, isolated, uncertain, and at the center of a global crisis. The world holds its breath, waiting to see what happens next. Canada's border shutdown is a dramatic rebuke of Trump's foreign policy. Ottawa is alarmed by Trump's proposed deal with Putin, which appears to reward Russian aggression in Ukraine. The closure is a last resort protest after private diplomacy failed. Alaska, reliant on the highway for supplies, faces a sudden crisis. Air and sea routes are costly and limited. The move challenges U.S. sovereignty and signals a fracture in the alliance. Canada's action turns a U.S.-Russia summit into a multilateral crisis, exposing rifts in NATO and the G7. The silent highways are a stark reminder. Even the closest friendships have limits. Anchorage, Alaska, chosen for its symbolism and strategic value, is the stage for Trump and Putin's summit. Alaska is America's closest point to Russia, separated by just 55 miles at the Bering Strait. Hosting the summit here projects strength, but also highlights vulnerability. Alaska is a military hub, a cornerstone of U.S. defense in the Arctic. For Putin, meeting here is a diplomatic win, legitimizing Russia's Arctic ambitions. The mood in Anchorage is tense. The border closure casts a shadow over the event. Russian media stirs old grievances, calling Alaska ours. What was meant to be a bridge now feels like a symbol of division between the U.S. and its allies. The summit's focus shifts from Ukraine to a crisis at home. At the heart of the summit is Trump's grand bargain, a ceasefire in Ukraine in exchange for sweeping concessions to Russia. The proposal: Russian energy companies gain access to Alaska's oil and gas reserves. Sanctions on Russia's aviation industry would be lifted, rescuing its struggling airlines. Russia would retain access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals, especially lithium. For Ukraine, this is an unthinkable price, surrendering land and resources to the aggressor. Supporters call it bold pragmatism. Critics see it as rewarding aggression. The deal marks a sharp break from the West's strategy of isolating Russia. The world watches, divided and uneasy. In public, Trump talks tough, warning Putin of consequences if no ceasefire is reached. He reassures allies of unwavering support for Ukraine. Privately, reports suggest Trump is willing to accept a land-for-peace deal, formalizing Russian control over occupied Ukrainian territories. This dual approach, public threats, private concessions, keeps everyone off balance. European allies are anxious, fearing a deal that legitimizes Russian aggression. The White House downplays expectations, but confusion grows. Trump bets he can manage contradictions and claim victory, but risks fracturing alliances. The world wonders, will this high-wire act bring peace or betrayal? Ukraine's response is one of outrage and disbelief. The government in Kyiv, already under immense pressure, reacts with fury to the prospect of a deal that could see its territory and sovereignty compromised. President Zelensky stands resolute, vowing never to surrender an inch of Ukrainian land or the nation's hard-fought resources. He calls on the world to remember the sacrifices made by his people and insists that Ukraine will not be forced into submission. For Kyiv, any land for peace proposal is seen as a betrayal of national identity and a dangerous precedent. Across Europe, anxiety spreads as leaders worry about the implications for their own security and the future of the continent. European leaders fear that a unilateral move by the US could shatter the fragile unity of the West and embolden Russian aggression, undermining years of collective effort. European nations have poured resources, military aid, and political capital into supporting Ukraine's fight for freedom. Many feel their sacrifices are being disregarded. For them, a US-brokered deal without their input feels like a slap in the face, threatening to unravel the trust that has held the alliance together. Meanwhile in Moscow, the mood is triumphant. Crowds celebrate in the streets, and Russian media hails the summit as a turning point. The Kremlin sees the summit as a diplomatic victory, a chance to divide the West and legitimize its territorial gains. Russian officials remain uncompromising, showing no willingness to negotiate or retreat from their demands. They insist on international recognition of their battlefield gains, pressing for concessions that Kyiv and its allies find unacceptable. Inside the US administration, sharp divisions emerge. Some officials argue the deal is a strategic move to end the war, while others warn it risks undermining American credibility. The debate is fierce. Is this leverage for peace, or a capitulation that will haunt the West for years to come? Former President Trump hints at more meetings with Putin, fueling uncertainty and speculation about the future of US-Russia relations. Around the globe, anxiety mounts, markets fluctuate, and ordinary people watch nervously, aware that the decisions made now could reshape the world order. The world is watching closely, waiting to see if the US will uphold the post-war order, or dismantle it in pursuit of a deal that could change everything. The stakes are enormous, not just for Ukraine's future, but for the principles of sovereignty and self-determination everywhere. At risk is the credibility of the Western alliance, and the trust that binds nations together in times of crisis. The outcome of these tense negotiations will echo far beyond Anchorage, shaping the future of global security for years to come. Alaska's Russian past looms over the summit, a silent presence in every negotiation and handshake. The echoes of history are impossible to ignore, as the land itself bears the marks of two empires, one fading, one ascendant. Once known as Russian America, Alaska was sold to the United States in 1867 for $7.20 million, a transaction hailed as a bargain by some, but remembered as a deep wound by others. The transfer marked a turning point, reshaping the destiny of the region and its people. For Native Alaskans, it was a moment of profound change, as new rulers brought new laws and ambitions. Today, the prospect of Russian companies tapping into Alaskan oil reserves is no longer just a hypothetical. The vast resources beneath Alaska's frozen ground have drawn international attention, and Russian energy giants see opportunity where others see risk. The stakes are high, with billions of dollars and geopolitical influence on the line. Alaska's economy could soon become entangled with its old adversary, even as US military bases stand vigilant along the frontier. The proximity of Russia and Alaska is a constant reminder of the region's strategic importance, and the military presence here is both a shield and a warning. The state could shift from a proud symbol of American sovereignty to a zone of uneasy partnership, where economic interests and national security collide. The wilderness that once represented freedom now faces the pressures of foreign investment and global politics. Beyond Alaska, the summit's fallout could shatter trust with allies and signal a retreat from America's global leadership. The world is watching closely, and every decision made here will ripple far beyond these icy shores. If the deal is seen as appeasement, it could fracture the Western alliance and embolden autocrats worldwide. The unity that has defined the post-war era is fragile, and cracks are already beginning to show. The very foundation of post-war security is at stake, as old agreements are tested and new threats emerge. The world order built on trust and cooperation now faces its greatest challenge in decades. The summit could collapse, deepening the US-Russia freeze, or produce a flawed peace that sows the seeds of future conflict. The choices made in these rooms will echo for generations, shaping the fate of nations. For Alaska, Ukraine, and the world, Anchorage is a turning point, a crossroads where history, power, and destiny converge. The decisions made here will shape the future of alliances, sovereignty, and the global order for years to come.